Last time on Improv Tabletop, we got into many shenanigans with our dysfunctional family that we are now playing with. We've got Safari Smith, who woke up on a nice morning, finally back in his own home, and was promptly rudely interrupted by his brother and his nephew, Ripper Cedar, excuse me. Ripper Cedar. The two of them showed up because their wives had gone out, Safari Smith's wife and Uncle Stan's wife had gone out on a trip, and Safari Smith had forgotten that he had promised that he would watch his brother for 17 days. There was some shenanigans and some skullduggery that happened. Stan snuck off into a bathroom and then used that as an opportunity to try and sneak into the greenhouse, which incidentally is also where Ripper has been trying to get this entire time, trying to solve the mysteries of the Smith mansion. And so he went out to the back to try and find his cousin Maud, the wild girl who lives in the backyard, and the two of them got into a bit of an altercation, which eventually led to, well, the altercation didn't lead to this, but Maud sent some of her friends, some woodland critters, off to try and stop Stan from getting into the greenhouse, but unfortunately they did assist in him getting into the greenhouse by biting him on the ankle and making him fall through the glass. And this prompted Safari Smith to come out, and all three of our heroes finally met up in this strange situation. They started arguing, but then a vine came out and wrapped itself around Ripper's leg. This vine had been infested with some strange purple spores that Maud and her friends had planted in the greenhouse some time ago. And today, based on their ritual, reading the leaves as if they were tea leaves, that today was going to be the day that those spores would bloom. And so, after defeating this plant that almost killed and ate them, they decided it was time to enter into the greenhouse and finally face up to the strange, terrible things that lurk inside. What are those strange, terrible things lurking inside the greenhouse? Let's find out here in the world of Jumanji Falls. I had to go back and re-listen to that episode to make sure I remembered all of the stuff that happened last episode.
It was a lot of stuff.
We dropped a lot of lore in the last episode. In any case, what's shaking, everybody? You're listening to Improv Tabletop, the Fate RPG actual play where we make up everything on the spot. I'm Ned Wilcock, your host and GM, and today I'm joined by...
Caleb Anderton. I would definitely, in real life, forget that I've invited family over for 17 days.
Heather. I probably would punch my cousin.
And Thomas, wielding a mini chainsaw.
I forgot about that.
That's right. The little 3-inch mini chainsaw that you use to try and cut away the vine. Now, Heather, when you say that you probably would punch your cousins, is this you trying to deflect the fact that you definitely have punched your cousins, IRL?
I actually probably really have one particular one, yes.
Well, sounds like there's some skeletons in that closet, so I'm not going to ask you to dig into that any further. But yeah, holy cow. Before we dig deep into the story that we have coming up here, before we come back to the present with everything happening in the greenhouse, I want to have just a few flashbacks from our characters. Each of them, it seems, have at least some degree of history with this greenhouse, some a bit more in-depth than others. I would like to start with Maud. One of the things that you mentioned during our last episode is that you and your woodland friends had found some strange purple spores and you had planted them in the greenhouse. So where did you initially find these spores in the first place?
I forgot that you planted the spores. I thought they were just there. Oh, man.
Surprise.
This is a joy to hear.
Well, if you remember, it was from the tree in the middle of the forest. The big, most important tree. The old tree.
The old tree.
Exactly. And I was there with my badger, my flying badger, and my snake, the most kindest snake ever.
I'm here.
And the craziest thing happened because we were by the old tree. We do a little bit of a ritual, and it's kind of like a morning routine thing. And all of a sudden, Badger fell into a little hole, and he went down and he was screaming, and so me and Snake had to go dig him out.
Downward dog became underground dog.
Exactly. And he doesn't really know how to dig holes like other badgers, which I found really weird. He's never really in the ground though. He likes to be in the trees.
That's a weird badger.
Yeah. And so Snake had to go down and get him without biting him, because I guess his bites hurt really bad.
I have a name, you know.
Oh my gosh. You're right. I never forget, Jerry. I never forget.
Thank you. It means a lot.
I'm sorry, Jerry. And so Jerry went down there and he said, hey, I am sensing something really strange down here other than Badger, who is named Gerard, by the way, but we kind of say Badger a lot. So I dug and dug and dug, and we found one of the main roots, and caught underneath was this fuzzy purple stuff. And I thought, hey, that would be a great thing to give to the spiders for their nests, when they have their babies and stuff. But then Jerry told me that it was actually a plant. He's better at knowing these things. In fact, he tells me all the names of everything. And he said it was probably not good to put in a nest because we should plant it. And so it was actually Gerard who found the greenhouse. Mm-hmm. So you guys tell the next part what happened.
It was a manifestation from the old tree.
That's right. It's a ficus. You can tell because of how it is.
That is a deep YouTube cut right there.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Showing our age a little bit.
Yeah, so what then prompted you to plant these spores?
I wanted some of the food that was in the greenhouse that I had been eyeing for quite a bit. I needed to make sure I had an excuse to keep going to the greenhouse.
What? Gerard.
I just thought, what else do you do with plants? You gotta plant them.
And the weird thing is it was not planting season, right? It was winter, so it made sense to me when Gerard was like, we have to use the greenhouse. And I was like, I don't go past those trees. And he's like, this is the only time you will ever have to. And I was like, I believed him. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's my best friend.
He's usually not wrong.
Usually not.
Gerard's just eating.
Interesting. So we have this tree, this strange, powerful tree of mysterious origins, and it creates some spores. And suddenly it just makes sense to all of us that we ought to plant these spores somewhere.
The old tree.
Interesting. Things are percolating in my brain. Now, Safari Smith.
Yes.
You had said that previously the greenhouse was a bit of a project that you had been working on, but that you had abandoned partway through. What was kind of your initial reasoning for building the greenhouse or setting up this project in the greenhouse?
Well, I've not only hunted big game, but I've also brought back many exotic and carnivorous plants from my adventures on safari and things like that. And so I've brought them back and wanted to cultivate them. I don't do any of the work myself, though. I brought them back and I really wanted my workers, Gerald and Berold, right?
Reginald and Beginald.
Reginald and Beginald.
There we go.
Yes. I call them those for short sometimes.
Yes.
I wanted them to do a good job, and for a while they kind of had it going, but then just weird things kept happening. And so they would work for a while, and then they'd get too weirded out, so they'd stop. And then I'd get home from a trip and put the fear of Safari Smith into them a little bit, and they'd get back to work on it. Then I'd leave again and they'd stop. And so that kind of went on for a while and eventually just kind of died out. And I don't know what's in there. I don't know what's been completed, what hasn't been. I've been meaning to get to it, but I've been gone for 17 months. Mm-hmm. So who knows what state it's in there.
Yeah. And Ripper, what was it that first made you feel so intrigued by this greenhouse?
Well, Ripper has a history with this greenhouse. Not only has he seen it grown from when he was an adolescent boy, but even being a adult adolescent boy at 18, he didn't go to his own prom. He was actually at his uncle's house and went to this high school's prom because, you know, to reimagine yourself in a new high school is sometimes easier to do than to be with people that you've been with your whole life. And he actually despite not having hit puberty, landed the hottest girl in all of high school.
Whoa.
Her name was Esmeralda, and she was, and he's hoping still is, one of the most beautiful women he's ever met. Beautiful brown with a hint of red, and her hair flowing past her shoulders. Maybe like 5'4", so he wasn't too much shorter than her, which was a good thing. But he brought her actually back to the mansion to kind of show off. And she's like, oh my gosh, I love nature so much. So he's like, well, let's go to the greenhouse. And so they went to the greenhouse. But there was just something eerie, actual eerie happening in the
Something unsettling.
Unsettling, there we go, happening in the greenhouse. And out of nowhere, like within 5 minutes, fog just started like rising up around them. And Ripper, to his shame, started like backing away like into a corner. And Esmeralda just seemed to like was transfixed, walked off into the mist, and then he never saw her again.
Inside the greenhouse?
Inside the greenhouse. Inside the greenhouse. Actual inside the greenhouse.
Wow.
And so he is anxiously ready to go find Esmeralda in this greenhouse.
All right. Now we know why he is so obsessed with this greenhouse in particular. Okay.
I'm ready.
Now, one thing that I'm going to do, a thing that I'm going to add to this to sort of raise the stakes a little bit is after we observe all of these flashbacks, we go back into that forest, across the well-manicured lawns, past the sculpted pine trees, which I don't know how I didn't pick this up while we were recording, but I was going back through and editing, and Heather, you talked about sculpted pine trees. Are you talking about like the topiaries, where they like carve them into fancy shapes and stuff?
Yes, they're not
Okay.
exactly pine, but yes.
Yeah, they're definitely conifers,
Yes.
so within the same family. Yeah, that definitely changes the mental image that I had of this place in a pretty cool way. So like we go in between these two topiaries that are sculpted, like one is the Colossus of Rhodes, and the other one is another Colossus of Rhodes, and they've like got their spears crossed. And we go underneath, like the camera goes underneath the two crossed spears, far, far back into the forest, where we find the old great tree.
The old great tree.
And it peers down into the knotted, gnarled roots and goes through them.
Gnarled roots.
Through the dirt, through the roots, until it gets to the center of where the tree's roots would be located. And there, tangled up in the roots, is a stone headstone, cracked in some places, weathered with age. And we can't see much of the name, but we do see the family name Smith carved across it. And the roots continue to delve deeper down through the earth, wrapping around a casket that has buckled and bowed with the ages, and further down. And as the roots delve further, we see this proliferation of purple spores until eventually the roots break out into an underground cavern, a mycologist's paradise, a cavern of mycelium underground, glowing with this strange bioluminescence, all of these weird purple fungi, all just kind of doing their thing down here. These spores having made their way up through the roots to this casket, to the mind that once dwelled inside of this casket. And now, to the greenhouse, where all of our heroes have just entered.
Come out, beast. I'll shoot you in your sappy face.
Uncle Smith, we already shot the... How do you know there's beasts in here? Have you been in here before?
No. Maybe. I'll deal with you later.
I put a few more drops of gasoline into my mini chainsaw, and it's completely full now. And I press the little prime button. You know, you got to prime the gas to get it into the engine.
Yeah.
So it should be good for like 3 more minutes.
Since Maud has been in here the one time, and she's very knowledgeable with like plants and earth, and like that is her life, even though she doesn't know the words, like she understands them and feels them almost avatar like, the blue avatar. And she just is jumping up on any of the raised beds into the dirt and like sticking her hands in the dirt, smearing it on her face, smelling it, licking different parts of it she doesn't feel is poisonous. She's just like in the stuff with her stick in one hand and her other hand like going through things. She's looking around the plant that she chopped up, like digging down by the roots, seeing what she can see.
Yeah, let's go ahead and have you overcome with clever.
Awesome. She's very clever. Nope, not at all. She's not.
Oh no.
Clever girl. Opposite of clever girl.
Hey! That was bad! Okay.
Whoa.
-1.
All right. So you're in here and you're just kind of rooting around through stuff, poking at it with your stick. You've got like your sharpest stick in one hand. You've got Ripper's machete that you stole from him in the other hand. And you're just kind of like rooting around through everything. And by the time you kind of catch your bearings, you just sort of let this feral instinct take over you. And you get to this area. There's sort of a clearing in the greenhouse. And you kind of stop and you take stock and kind of peer around you and realize this greenhouse should not be this big. That was a relatively small greenhouse when we entered it, but there is like vastness on all sides of you. And you look up to the sky and you see towering above you in a circle ringed perfectly are 7 immensely tall sycamore trees reaching far up into the sky, even though when you entered the greenhouse from the outside, you could see that it had like a 9-foot tall roof, these trees reaching upward and upward. And you look down their trunks to the ground, and you can see woven vines and creepers forming a septagram connecting these 7 trees together. Gosh. And in the very center of that septagram is a single purple mushroom.
Ooh. Maud just points and says very clearly and distinctly, because she is in like her feral natural state and has kind of forgotten things around her, she clearly and distinctly says, she forgets who she's talking to.
Ah, yes.
I go, oh, okay. I pull off my hat and a book falls out of my hat with a pencil and I put it back on and it just says Conversations with Maud. And I open it up and it's over all of the years how Maud has communicated in the past. And I go, oh, okay, a lot of tisks and hisses and a snake in there. And I believe she's warning us.
Safari Smith is very concerned, especially with the fact that this greenhouse is bigger on the inside. And just,
Yes, of course, it's just, I only have the best. It's just a bit of classic British sci-fi technology that I've employed here.
Yeah.
Clever.
And we watch these 3 kind of peering around, and in the air all about them, these tiny, tiny little purple spores just kind of floating in the mist around them, being breathed in by our heroes as they observe this strange, huge area that they're now inside of.
Maud, knowing like she still has Ripper's clothes on top of her clothes when she was trying to pretend to be him, she just takes the shirt and that's like kind of torn from being, run through the ground and thrown up against a wall, and like so it's easily torn, and she just starts tearing pieces and tying them around her mouth and nose and their mouth and nose, trying to make...
Don't touch me.
Do you mean that you rip Ripper's clothes?
Sure do.
My second pair of clothes is clearly already on. I pulled it out of my backpack to get it on after I've covered my bloody parts from being dragged through the rocks. All right, Maud, lead us here. I'm following you. We've got to navigate the greenhouse here, so...
Yes, if you go first, the beast might eat you first.
Maud is going to go like down army crawling on the ground. She doesn't care that safari man didn't put the thing over his mouth and nose like she was trying to do. He's like, don't touch me, and kind of pulled it away. She doesn't really care, but she put it on and she's like crawling on the ground and indicates to them to get down. And she's going to try to be super sneaky, stealthy, like a winter fox, and just try to go under things by edges. And she's gonna make her way. You said the mushroom was like tangled up in the, is it up in the sky?
The mushroom is planted in the very center amongst the 7 sycamore trees where you planted it all of those years ago.
So she is going to go near there, but not inside the circle, but she's gonna try to go like around the bases of the trees and like see if there's a circle that has been drawn there or something to disrupt it. She's trying to gauge the energy that she feels there, and she's suspicious about these beasts he talked about. So she's trying to like not be near anything that could eat her.
All right, let's have you roll with clever. You're trying to read the energies from this thing. Now, here's the thing. You already failed previously on your clever roll, so you're already in the thick of things. You're trying to be sneaky, but things have already noticed you and are peering in from outside of this circle of trees. But you can try and pick up some additional details while you're in here.
That's fair. That's fair.
I want to use a fate point and help her, actually. I follow along with her, so me following along so exactly maybe could give her a boost of confidence, like being the leader here of our safari, if you will. So I'll spend a fate point to assist her in any way I can.
All right, which aspect would you like to invoke for that?
I'm putting on my skepticals because this is a suspicious environment here, and I agree, Maud, we should be sneaky.
All right, so you can either re-roll or add +2 to whatever your result was.
I will add +2 to make that a 1.
A 1. All right.
Nice.
That is a success. So you think back to what Jerry said about the 7 sycamore trees, each containing a different type of creature. And you look at the trunks of these trees and you can see that each one has a hole in the side of it. A hole roughly in a humanoid or animalistic shape, something maybe between humanoid and animalistic, appearing as if something has emerged from each of these 7 trees, and the trees are empty at this point.
Now, Maud is a hunter in her own right, and she knows she's very good at that, but she does realize that she's only seen the creatures in her tiny little forest that's surrounded in this big, I imagine it kind of like over the hedge, where it's this little forest and then you pan out and it's like this city all around this patch of forest.
Right.
So she's only seen that. So she's gonna sneak crawl over to that safari man and just kind of say, hey, there's obviously some creatures that look at those trunks. I need you to tell me what we're looking for. What, you know?
I look down at her and I say, you have good instincts, girl. Where do you think you got those hunting instincts?
Gerard and Jerry.
It was me, girl. You're my daughter.
Don't even know you. And she's gonna go hide behind Ripper.
I will survey the scene with my hunter's eyes and I'll sniff the air. And the hunt is on. I'm going to hunt down one or all of these creatures.
All right.
And I'm not being sneaky.
Okay, let's have you roll to overcome with clever to see if you can pick up on the trail.
Ooh, I'm using a fate point. I rolled 2 nothings and 2 negatives. Those are both doubles. So I'm invoking doubles gets another turn.
Oh,
all right.
Clever.
And I'm going to roll again. 3 negatives and 1 0. So
All right, that brings you up to a flat 0.
that's true because it's clever. Yeah, flat 0.
Yeah, so what I'm going to say is I am going to use my free invoke on the guard dog, quote unquote. You're peering around, trying to figure out what to do here in this greenhouse, trying to find whatever creatures have come out of these trees. And while you're doing that, the camera once again pulls out from the greenhouse, and we can see the spores are continuing to proliferate all around the grounds, onto your perfect lawn, onto the topiaries. You see that the two the colossi of Rhodes with their spears crossed, one of them takes the spear and begins to move and stabs the other one with it, and they start having a fight. The spores are continuing, like Reginald and Beginald are in the golf cart eating, just like they've got a whole big pile of treats that they got from the convenience store down the road, and Reginald is just chomping down a cosmic brownie, and he's like, "This sure is the life, isn't it?" And Beginald can't respond because he's already got like 5 Star Crunches in his mouth. And we see the spores going up towards them in the golf cart.
Oh no.
And all throughout the property, these spores are touching things and making them strange. And we go to the foyer, the very front area, where a single spore lands on the tip of the horn of that silver-plated rhinoceros.
Oh no.
And Safari Smith, while you are here in the greenhouse looking around trying to find something, you feel a rumbling in the ground. And you're like, okay, I think I'm close to something. You follow kind of like the direction of the rumbling, and you have found your way to one of the walls of the greenhouse. It is kind of, smeared with dirt, and there's a little bit of algae and moss kind of growing up on there. So you're like, what's that sound? What is that rumbling? And you smear away the glass so that you can see through it, and you see the rhinoceros come busting out of the back door of your mansion directly towards you in the greenhouse.
It's a stampede!
Yeah, and you see joining the rhinoceros on all sides are topiaries uprooting themselves out of the ground. They leave the two colossi having their spear battle, and now there's like one that's shaped like a big old rabbit is hopping as fast as it can. You've got elephants. You've got like a chain chomp from Mario for some reason as like broken free of its chain and is now just following along with the stampede. Just dozens and dozens of topiaries being led by this rhinoceros. So, everybody, what would you like to do in response to this?
Up in the trees! I climb a tree.
All right.
And I pull out some tree climbing shoes, some spikes, and I clip them on to like some magnets on the bottom of my shoes, and I start climbing. And I go, Mud, get up here!
What's our special Smith instinct say about this, Safari man? And she just is gonna hook her fingers into Ripper's belt loops and just let him carry her up.
All right. And Safari Smith, what are you going to do?
The instincts say climb a tree.
And I'll also climb the trees behind them.
All right. So I think Safari Smith and Ripper, we're definitely going to have both of you roll with Quick to try and outrun the stampede here. Maud, can you justify to me why you are helping Ripper rather than hindering him as he's trying to climb you up this tree?
Well, I feel like Maud, she doesn't really get propriety or like socialness, but in this moment, I think she feels like she's gotta give him a win because he was like being nice to her, like, Maud, come up with me, instead of just yelling at her. And so as she's like hooked into his belt loops, I imagine that she's actually using her feet between his legs, like pushing him up.
So with your extra support pushing from beneath, I think we can have you roll with Forceful.
Yes, finally.
And Quick is my peak approach. Hi-ya!
Yes. And Quick is Safari Smith's worst approach.
Yep.
So let's see how this goes.
I'm taking a picture of this because
I
rolled 4 ones, and I have a 3 in Quick, which is a 7 total.
Oh boy.
Nice.
Very nice.
Those shoes, man.
Yeah. Maud, what did you roll?
Well, I rolled a double negative, which puts us at a 1.
With your +3 Forceful.
So I'm not much of a help.
Do you want to try and get something better than that?
Yeah, I think I'm actually going to use a fate point and do my high concept. Definitely, absolutely raised by badgers. No question about it. Because my badger knows how to climb a tree.
Yes.
My badger's great at climbing a tree.
It's true.
You hear the words of Gerard. You just scramble up it. You use all fours and you just scramble. You dig your nails in.
So I'm going to reroll. Oh, how horrible. It's the same.
Man, one of these days, one of you is just going to add a +2 to your result, and you're going to realize, wow, this is actually pretty great. But that's not today.
It's not this
So
day.
we've got a +7 from Ripper, +1 from Maud, unless you want to keep trying to get something better.
Now let him pull me up.
All right. And Safari Smith, what did you get?
A -1.
All right. Do you want to try and modify that at all?
Nope.
Okay.
Ripper is anxiously ready. Not so incredibly inept right now.
Yeah. Ripper, you start climbing as hard as you can, and you have this franticness in you right now that you've never felt before. And even with like the kind of dead weight, Maud is helping a little bit, but you're just like hand over hand, foot over foot. You've got your tree climbing like grabbers on your feet.
I've watched so many lumberjack videos on YouTube to prepare me for this moment.
Yeah, you are climbing so well. You make it up to the boughs just in time to look down and see your uncle get just completely bombarded by the stampede. So, Safari Smith, I'm going to roll for the stampede. So, with the free invoke on the guard dog, quote unquote, that is a +4 against your -1.
Oh my
So that is 5 points of stress coming in towards you.
Oh my goodness.
Take it.
Yeah.
Take
Yeah,
it.
I'll take it. Can I shift any of those into consequences?
Yeah, you've got a 4 consequence and a 2 consequence that you could put some of that stress into. So either one of those, if you would like to use them.
I have a question. So I'm just wondering what exactly is happening with this stampede so I can see if I can do something
Yeah.
to help pull some stress on me or something like that.
You would do that for me? Are you sure?
She's in a, one of those animalistic moments where she doesn't know what she's doing. So
These purple spores, man, they're changing behavior.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what is going on with the stampede is they come barreling in through the glass wall, and they are running directly through kind of this ring of sycamores. They're all like skirting around the trees, of course, but you also notice that very conspicuously, they are parting around that mushroom in the center. Like the stream gets close to the mushroom, splits in half, and then regroups on the other side of the mushroom. And they are rushing in some direction on the other side. And as you kind of follow, you hear another shattering noise in the direction where they're going. And you can see this weird light kind of spilling in from off in that direction.
okay, so as like these things are like coming at him or are starting to hit him, however you prefer, she's gonna take the machete that she had like stuck through her rope belt and her sharp stick, and she's just those vines that are all over that are also up in the boughs of the trees. She's just gonna slice one and pull a Tarzan and try to kick one of the creatures or something away from him so that there's less damage. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, I'll say if you do that, then we will shift 2 of the damage off of Safari Smith onto you.
Okay.
You don't have to do that, you know.
I know, it's this darn instinct I didn't realize I had.
Yeah, Safari Smith just like peeks his head up from where it's completely like submerged into the earth. Like it's like if the camera is completely parallel with the ground, like after the stampede is passed, it's just flat, and then you see Safari's head just like peel up out of the dirt up towards Maud.
You didn't have to do that. I can take it like a man.
I still have 3 stress on me, right?
Correct.
I'm going to take 1 stress and a 2 consequence.
All right. I think the 2 consequence that we're going to give you is maybe a little bit of remorse at the fact that your prized hunting trophy came back to bite you, as it were. and Maud, do you want to take a consequence or just put both of those in your stress?
I'll just put him in my stress.
All right.
I don't know what remorse feels like.
These spores, man, changing everything.
Changing everything.
I'd like to get while this is happening, remorse is happening, and looking out, I am looking for adventure, meaning I'm like standing, not holding on with my hands, like my feet fully supporting me, just like standing and looking across the greenhouse. How vast is this landscape that I see before me, Ned?
It is quite vast, in fact. So, like, you look off in the direction of where the stampede came from, and it feels like it's maybe like half a football field away, that one wall of the greenhouse, and you follow the path of the stampede to the other side, the other wall of the greenhouse, where they seem to have like shattered something else, and that's maybe another half a football field away. So not like boundless the size of this greenhouse, but definitely the largest greenhouse that probably exists.
All right.
From the inside, at least.
And that's just the side walls, right? We're not even talking about the depth.
Deep.
It goes deep.
Deep.
I mean, I'd like to try to view. I want to do a perception check, please, and see what I can glean here from the greenhouse.
Yeah, let's have you roll to overcome with clever.
Aha! Hey, that's a 3.
3, yeah. So you follow the path of that stampede, and it seems that they were going somewhere. They maybe got a little bit carried away, but you can see that not too far, like I mentioned, there's a bit of weird light kind of spilling in from the other side. It seems that that wall maybe isn't actually the exterior wall of the greenhouse. It seems to lead into another part of the greenhouse.
And is the mushroom the source of all just the spores?
Yeah.
I go down to the bottom 2 individuals and I go, well, gang, we have a choice. The big mushroom, poisonous, deadly, neofluorescent spores that we are breathing in every second. So we can go investigate that. Or the wall that they crashed through, I think leads to another, dare I say, dimension? Certainly not the outside of your estate, Safari Sam. Smith, apologies, sir. But I believe this leads somewhere else that we can find answers.
Okay, one moment. I probably should have mentioned this before, but I saw like this gorilla of a man, I think, who fell into this greenhouse before us. Was there anybody else here other than those 2 bozos that cut the grass?
Stan?
Who?
Yeah, that's my dad. You haven't met him because he's usually gambling in a casino and drops me off here. He takes my lunch money.
I just want to make you aware that he's here. I'm totally okay going into that other dimension or facing the mushroom. I'm actually very interested in that mushroom. It turned out a lot bigger than I thought it would be when it happened.
You've seen this before? You've been here before?
Girl, explain yourself.
How do you think the mushroom got there? I mean, it didn't just grow by itself. Do you guys know anything about plants?
I have a confession to make. Uncle Smith, I've been in here too.
What?
On a date. It didn't have all these poisonous, deadly spores that we're breathing in every second, but it did have a mysterious mist. A mist that seemed to envelop any that walked and ventured into it.
To it.
I get this far off look.
It appears everyone has been into my greenhouse but myself.
Well, welcome. This is your greenhouse.
Thank you, Ripper.
Safari Smith is just feeling a little down about his prize trophy that just tried to kill him, about the fact that everybody has been kind of trampling all over his own private property. It's just his world isn't quite the way he thought it was. And he's going to take a deep breath and turn to Maud and say, girl, I don't know why I feel this way, but I feel that you should lead the way.
Is that because you think I'm like a good meat shield or something?
That might be part of the reason, but lead the way.
I'll take it. She's going to do something interesting. So Her and her father are on the ground, and is Ripper like yelling to them from the top of the tree?
I have slid down, but
Oh, okay. So she's gonna take her sharpest stick, and she's actually gonna throw it right next to the mushroom as hard as she can, hoping that it like plants a little bit, but she wants to see the effect when they come back of what could happen by getting close to this mushroom. So she's gonna throw that and then start crawling, walking Tarzan-ish like towards that opening that is possibly another dimension.
Yeah, so you toss your sharpest stick. Let's have you roll with careful to see how precisely you can get it into the ground. Because it sounds like you're not trying to actually, like, damage the mushroom or anything.
Correct.
I just want to clarify, Ripper does not know if it's another dimension. This is just a wild assumption he's making.
Or does that count as her stunt? Because she's using the stick. That's her stunt or piece of equipment.
Oh, I agree with him. Not because I rolled poorly.
Not at all, not at all.
Certainly not.
I think you throw the stick, and because you're using your stunt, you guys are going to get a pretty interesting reaction out of this. Something revelatory. You throw the stick, and it plants itself in the ground. And as it does, you can see the ground almost sort of like ripple outwards.
Oh.
You can see leading from the stem of this mushroom down into the ground countless little hair-like fibers of roots that go all the way throughout the ground, up into the sycamore trees, and they ripple towards you. And as the ripples reach you, each of you is overcome with the most powerful hallucination yet that you've experienced in here. And I think the one who experiences it most powerfully, like Ripper and Maud, you get something because of your familial connection. You see just like these two outlines of figures that you don't recognize. But Safari Smith, you see the outlines of these two figures and you do recognize them because they are your parents.
Mother? Father?
Your parents that you had to bury back in the forest all of those years ago after they perished on a safari of their own, leaving you and your brother behind.
The old tree.
Now, you and your brother ended up pretty interesting, let's say. What do you feel like Safari Smith's relationship with his parents was like back when they were still alive?
Dad was definitely hard on him, and Mother was always kind of there to step in, protect him from that harshness a little bit. But still, Dad was everything that Safari Smith ever hoped to be.
Yeah, if we look at kind of like the brusqueness and the gruffness that Safari Smith has, he probably gets quite a bit of that from his father. And I think perhaps if we look at some of maybe Stan's impulsiveness, maybe he gets a bit of that from his mother. Your parents certainly were complicated people, which is the polite way of saying that maybe they weren't actually very good people. You don't know what they would do off on their own safaris. Back in the day, they left you and your brother at home. They were off gallivanting across the world doing all sorts of crazy things, bringing back all sorts of strange things with them that they never actually let you see. Like, there would be these crates that would come into the home being carried by, like, teams of movers, and you'd be like, oh, what's in that? And they'd be like, oh, you don't get to know that, son. That's for Mama and Papa. So there has been an air of mystery throughout this house for your entire life. Strange things have been happening, and it seems that maybe your parents are at the root of the strange things that have been happening around here.
And I'm going to say that when I inherited, I looked on those crates and crates of things with such disgust, I didn't even look at them. I also buried those things out in the family forest.
Ooh. So you are all overcome with this wave of this vision, and as soon as it comes, it passes.
I whisper, Esmeralda.
Maud just kind of side eyes him.
And Ripper, actually, as you whisper out Esmeralda, it's interesting. You don't hear a voice, you feel a voice emanating, reverberating through the fungal network beneath you that says, "Yes, Ripper?"
Is it accompanied by a...
Why not? This is a cartoon. Why not?
Go, Esmeralda. And I start in a trance, stumbling forward to the voice, the direction I heard the voice, regardless of where it was.
To the mushroom?
If it was the mushroom, I'm stumbling forward to where the sharpest stick probably is.
So it doesn't actually come from the mushroom. It comes from the opening.
Oh, well, then I am going to the opening, and I slowly start walking there. My mini chainsaw, I believe, has been clipped on a keychain onto my backpack right now.
All right. So, yeah, you see from one side of this opening, this big shattered, like, you can see as you get closer, there's a door in the wall, but the Stampede completely ignored it. They just went through the wall right next to the door. So we see on one side of the opening, Ripper is walking forward trance-like, his limbs moving strangely, kind of like wobbling back and forth, almost sort of like dragging along as he goes. And then we cut to the other side of that gaping entrance in the wall, and we see another figure also stumbling its way towards this entrance, breathing heavily, distraught. There is an unnaturalness to the way that this being moves, this gruff, heavy voice. I gotta get to him. I gotta warn him. Moving towards that entryway. And eventually, these two are going to converge, but Safari Smith and Maud, as you see Ripper walking off towards this entrance, what do the two of you do?
Boy!
And I'll grab my blunderbuss and I'll start stalking after him and I'll turn back to Maud.
Come on, girl. Let's find him.
She was so entranced with what happened with the stick that I don't think she really noticed anything odd with him. She's not very clever. And so she just followed when Safari yelled after her and she's like, "Oh yeah, that was my plan." So she just follows.
Yeah, the two of you catch up with Ripper right around the time he reaches the entrance. And Ripper, just as you're about to walk through, you see a figure come stumbling out of the darkness, out of the mist towards you. Because, it's not darkness because, like I said, there's this eerie light coming through. And you can see through the mist, the light rays kind of lancing out, forming these swirling patterns, this light display almost. And a shadow appears in those lights, moving towards you. And as it emerges from the mists, your hand outstretched is met with another outstretched hand from the other side, and you are face to face with your father.
Oh, it's Harry.
Oh, I thought it was Esmeralda.
Esmeralda, you've changed.
But you can see that his clothes are ragged and tattered, and you can see, growing out of the side of his face is a fungal colony of little purple mushrooms sprouting upward.
Ew.
And he says, "Son, thank goodness you're here." And he looks up and sees Safari Smith and Maud. I don't know if he's ever actually seen Maud before.
Probably not.
He's not an observant or considerate man, so he just sees this girl he's never seen before and is like, okay, whatever, but turns towards Safari Smith, and he stumbles towards you and grabs you by the lapels, and he says, "Sam, it's Ma and Pop. I don't know what happened to him, but we gotta stop him." You can feel his grip slackening as he falls to his knees and collapses unconscious on the ground in front of you.
Stan.
I check for a pulse.
He has a pulse.
Okay.
He is alive.
Maud just steps over him and continues.
I go, Uncle Smith, I should call you by your first name, really, but
It's Sam.
Uncle Sam, I feel like my father's always left me with you, but I'm not sure if I should leave him right now.
Ripper. As boys, your father and I got up to worse than this. You'll be fine.
And I will talk into my watch, which talks to the servants, and say,
come to the entrance of the greenhouse, pick up my brother. He needs attention. And I will drag him over and kind of chuck him out of the entrance and walk back over and say, it'll be fine. There are things that you need to see here. Come with me.
With his hand on my shoulder, I look back to the entrance, longingly, but to the eerie light coming from the hallway, which I firmly believe is another dimension. Silhouetted, I nod and walk forward after Maud before going back and picking up her sharpest stick and running after her to give it back.
You go on that fungal thing
I don't want
next to it and grab the stick.
You've always had your sharpest stick, so I will always bring it to you.
Like a dog.
My hero.
And as the three of you enter through into this other dimension, maybe, we go over to the golf cart and we hear Safari Smith's voice coming through the speaker. Come and grab my brother. And Reginald says, he doesn't like hit the reply button, so you don't hear what he says, but he's like, oh, yes, of course. Absolutely, boss. We'll get him taken right care of.
Oh, crap.
And that is where we're going to pick up next time. Great. Totally normal. Everything is normal.
Thanks, I hate it.
Everything's fine.
Everything is a peachy fine key. Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Things have gone in some directions. Oh,
I
yeah.
feel like this could be like a 2-year campaigin we could play, honestly.
I know.
Like it feels like it's got a lot of wind in its sails. Maybe that's just me, but I'm quite involved. I think this is the most involved I've ever been in a fake campaign.
I know. I was like, how on earth can we wrap it up in 2? I don't want to.
No, just one more. We have one more.
Yeah, we've got one more episode after this.
No,
The first one was just our character creation.
We did the first episode was just our character.
I'm pretty sure we have changed on Improv Tabletop since I am there all the time. I'm pretty sure we have changed to the first episode as Crunch Squad, and we still will get 2 more. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm of authority. I would know.
Yes, I will check with the board and see what they think.
Strahd?
Yeah, I'll let you know what my cat thinks about this situation. In fact, I can tell you right now what my cat thinks. He thinks I've been recording for too long and I need to go pay attention to him.
Yeah. I'm just so invested in the lore.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever been more lore in one of our fake campaigns and more to try and wrap up in one episode, but we'll do our darndest, everybody. Oh, man. Well, everybody, thanks for listening to Improv Tabletop. We'll be back next week with more adventures in the world of Jumanji Falls. If you want more, go ahead and subscribe, maybe even give us a review. We would be as happy as somebody who thinks he is going to meet the love of his life again after she's been lost for a long time. If you would go ahead and give us a review on the podcatcher of your choice. We're also all over social media at Improv Tabletop. If I'm being honest, most of those accounts aren't being actively monitored. But if you'd like to connect with us, we do have an email address, improvtabletop@gmail.com. So you can feel free to reach out to us there. Maybe you would like to get on Heather's side and petition for me to increase the length of our campaigns.
Please.
Patreon, the Discord. I mean, that is absolutely the way to talk to us and petition for anything.
That's true.
Yes, but it's not time to plug the Discord quite yet, because right now it's time to shout out our next batch of Sticker Club patrons. And this week we're shouting out Elena Georgieva, Elizabeth McDowell, and James Walker.
Hey.
Yeah.
These 3 are...
Our topiaries?
Yeah. Why not? These 3 are some of the topiaries who are helping out with that stampede. Stampedes, they need some degree of organization. That's not a true statement. Stampedes are the opposite of organization. But to prevent them at least from running over the central mushroom that controls this fungal mind network, there needs to be at least some kind of organization. So these 3 are the people who are making sure that all the other topiaries and also the silver-plated rhino did not run over the mushroom. So good job. You succeeded.
Hooray!
You succeeded in your goal. And everybody's happier because of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We will have more Sticker Club patrons to shout out next week. And if you, dear listener, want to join their ranks, consider joining our Patreon.
Oh, there it is.
At patreon.com/Improv Tabletop.
Hey, petition.
Yes, where you can also get things like Discord access, where you can petition to me if you want to increase the length of this campaign. Also, there's biannual sticker packs, and there's more, such as our current ongoing patron-exclusive campaign, Miceborn: The Mouse Ritter Chronicles, which has more than just one episode to wrap up, which is probably good for that campaign. Crazy stuff is happening in that campaign.
America.
America. They certainly do make everything interesting.
Scraunch bless America.
Scraunch bless America. Wow. We're also posting previews. You've probably already noticed that by now, but we're posting previews of our patron exclusive episodes on our main feed here. So go give those a listen and see if you'll like them. And if you do like them, go check out the full things. They're lots of fun. Having a wonderful time with this campaign. Now let's do a round of plugs. Heather, would you like to take that this time around?
Absolutely, I would. I don't think any of you have heard of this before, but we have a sister podcast.
What?
Which has an incredible name, and
Really?
it's called I Cast Fireball. Oh, yeah. I mean,
What an amazing name.
they were really thinking high genius stuff coming up with that name. So, I Cast Fireball. Go give them a listen. They're on this great seafaring campaign right now with lots of wholesome stuff happening, I may say. You know, no violence or anything, because it's not like they're all pirate-like or anything.
Yarr.
Lots of fun over there, lots of mirth, as one of them is cursed with being joyful. So you're going to have a great time listening. So go over there, give them a listen, you know, maybe write them a review. The other thing I would like to plug is just a good and honest board game with the people you like, especially the unlock games. There is this series of unlock games that Thomas and I pulled out that was the spy one, because I feel like I was a spy in another life. Man, that really turned me into a spy. It was incredible. Go try an unlock game, especially the spy one, with some of your compatriots.
The spy one is called the Epic Unlock Series.
Yes.
Nice.
It will give you a good time too. After ICF, of course.
Right on. Well, everybody. Oh,
One more plug. I'm sorry. This one's really important.
go for it.
I plug the Heather wants another episode of this campaign.
Yes.
Yes.
So please, bombard this guy. Send all the things to the Gmail being like, hey, we actually like Heather on here, and she seems to only be on here once a year, and she deserves one more episode. Give her another episode.
Certainly not be done recording this campaign by the time this is released. Yeah.
Yeah.
It will hit my heart anyways, and Ned will fill it in advance. I promise. That's the kind of energy here.
He will perceive into the future.
Yes, I am already perceiving it in advance, I think. Yeah, listeners, we'll see what ends up happening with all this. But in the meantime, thanks for joining us here in the world of Jumanji Falls. I'm Ned Wilcock, your host and GM, and I've been joined by...
Caleb Anderton. Can't decide if this guy's British or not.
Heather, really sad about the episode thing.
And Thomas, dripping with lore.
Much love and stuff, everybody. We'll catch you next time on Improv Tabletop.
Do you guys know anything about plants?
Mushrooms are not plants, girl.
Are they stars?
They are their own genus and species.
What's a genus?
Not you.
Hey, there it is.
Got her.
Oh, man.